I guess Councilmember Anderson will be coming shortly.
So you're calling us to order for the regular agenda
Oh,
because the mayor is not here yet.
I thought we were doing the, oh, yes. My apology.
No, I just wanted to make sure that you
Yes.
had that one in front of you.
So call to order at 6:02 PM on the 7th of January of the year of 2025. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please. Here.
Personnel.
Here.
Irving,
Here.
Ferguson,
Here.
King,
Here.
and then Bender, you don't see online yet, so.
Motion to excuse Councilmember Bender.
Second.
All in favor, state aye. All opposed? Okay, so we have a very one topic. This is a
No. Motion to approve the agenda as presented. Second.
all in favor, state aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. So moving on to the regular agenda, there is one issue, one item, and we're going to get to it. So please, City Administrator.
This evening, for your review and approval is the final collective bargaining agreement with the local 302. As you know, we began negotiations early in 2024, and those negotiations continued through December when the union did approve the tentative agreement on December 23rd. So now it is for your review and approval.
Questions or comments on this topic for the city administrator on this item?
Move to,
We can, yeah.
Yeah.
Please.
move to approve the collective bargaining agreement and associated MOUs between the city and IUOE Local 302 for 2025 through 2027.
Second.
Any comments on this? I would just like to say I'm very thankful to see that our 302 people worked through not having a collective bargaining agreement. They will have one here in a few seconds. Thankful for all the work they do in this city, especially this time of the year with all of the issues with weather and whatnot. So very good. Anybody else? And this is not a roll call vote. Okay, anybody else have anything to comment on? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, council.
It is 6:05 PM. We shall adjourn the special Buckley City Council meeting. And then we will, in a moment, go into the study session.
About 1 minute to stop it.
Yes, take a pause.
And we will be pushing item E, review of park impacts fee, to the February study session. The consultant who did that work is actually going to come and provide a presentation. When we got it back after the packet went out, we're going to let them explain this to everyone, how they arrived at their conclusions.
Okay.
Okay, it's 6:06 PM on the 7th of January of 2025. We will convene the regular Buckley City Council study session. And you all have your packets, and it looks like first item would be a review of the certified local government ordinance.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I wanted to spend a little bit more time this evening going through the ordinance. This is based off of the model ordinance provided by the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation, and we had our first review in our December study session meeting, but I just wanted to go through it one more time before we take it to the next step. So the beginning of the ordinance is standard language. We have our sections identified, the purpose, as well as our definitions. Beginning in section 4, we have designated the Citizens Advisory Commission as the Historic Preservation Committee. In many cities, there is a specific Historic Preservation Committee. Depending on the volume of interest for this program, we thought it would be best to just use one of our existing commissions, at least for the time being. So this section accomplishes that. Looking at section 5, this was something that is somewhat unique to Buckley. It was a selection made by the Citizens Advisory Commission to offer 2 types of designations. The first would be a landmark designation. So any property designated as a landmark would require what's called a certificate of appropriateness. So an actual approval before they modified their structures that had been designated as landmarks. And these landmark designations are the ones that would be eligible for the state or federal tax incentives, as well as our variances, which we'll discuss a little later in the code. And then the second would be a community landmark designation. So for a group that wanted an honorary recognition, they would have an option to apply for that as well. Section 6 identifies the criteria for the historic designation. So it needs to have one of these following criteria: historical significance, architectural or artistic value, archaeological significance, and the integrity of the original location, design, setting, materials, whatever it is that makes it historically significant. Section 7 identifies the process for having a property designated as a historic Buckley landmark. It specifies that any person, including any member of the commission, may nominate a historic resource for designation as a landmark or as a community landmark. Later on in item E, you'll notice that it does require that a property owner agree with the nomination. So it specifies that if a property owner does not agree, the historic preservation officer will not be able to move forward with that nomination towards the commission. Section 8 outlines the process for reviewing designations. The Citizens Advisory Commission overall holds a public hearing, may hold a public hearing, and then makes the recommendation to the city council. And then the city council has the final determination to designate something as a Buckley landmark. Section 9 outlines the certificate of appropriate procedure for those properties that are designated as Buckley landmarks, not for those that have the honorary designation. So if a property wanted various types of restoration, major repairs, or to significantly alter the appearance, there's a variety of different types of certificates, some of which are just approved over the counter and others which would require review of the Citizens Advisory Commission or the Historic Preservation Commission. Section 10 provides the option to terminate a historic designation. So let's say that a property was designated, that property changed hands, or the Citizens Advisory Commission said if you made these modifications, you would no longer have your historic designation. This identifies the way that they would go about having that designation terminated. And then section 11 and 12 are standard language taken from DAHP, but adopts our specific code provisions for penalties and violations. And then the last section, section 15, would amend our municipal code to provide zoning relief in our development regulations. And this is something that was tailored to the city of Buckley. Not all cities do this, but it would allow for variances for setbacks, lot coverage, building height, and or parking requirements to preserve the historic character of the building. And so this would take the same variance criteria as any other administrative variance outlined in the Buckley Municipal Codes, or not administrative variance, major variance outlined in the Buckley Municipal Code, including going to the hearing examiner. And then the hearing examiner would review it and then grant that variance. Because of this section, section 15, our next step for this ordinance will be going through the SEPA process. We also have to notify the Department of Commerce and hold a public hearing, because anytime that we modify our development regulations, those are the steps that we take. Our hope is to package this along with some other development regulations that we need to take forward as a result of the comprehensive plan updates, which we will bring forward at our next committee meeting and then again for council review. So the next time that you see this, likely we'll spend not as much time on it, and it'll be in spring as part of a larger package with some other development updates.
Councilmember Green.
A question on the termination of historic designation. So what if it's like the property owner decides for whatever reason, maybe like his insurance premiums went up or something that he no longer wants, or he or she no longer wants their property to be designated this historic designation? Do they have to go through this whole process and like be at the will of the council to remove that designation, or do they have a way to remove that designation without going through all these steps, relying on us?
No, this would be the steps for removing the designation. So if a property owner didn't want the designation, they would need to have these steps. The reason for that is that this is something that's attached to title specifically for you to be able to receive the tax incentives if you have an actual Buckley landmark. For the honorary designation, I don't know what the incentive would be to necessarily be removed unless we requested the removal because they just, they chose to demolish the building or do some huge modification and it was no longer considered historic from the city's perspective. But in order to be able to receive the grant opportunities as well as the potential tax relief, they need to have an official process established through the city and be on our register with some review, which also requires some type of a process in order to be de-designated. So ultimately, it would be up to the council to make that determination, but given the fact that we put in here that the property owner has to agree with the designation, I think it is assumed that we would also allow for them to remove that designation, but we could add some more specific language if you would like to this section.
I'd like to see just something a little more specific
Okay.
carved out. So, some future council doesn't go historical designation crazy and
Okay, something that just is as simple maybe as any property owner that requests the property to be removed, it will be granted by the city council. Or
Yeah,
the city
something
council
like that, yeah.
can't deny it unreasonably, something. Okay, I'll have the city attorney look at that.
Councilmember Bergeson.
So, I just had a question on section 9, where you were talking about the certificates and you said some of them would be granted just over the counter, others would have to go to the Citizens Advisory Commission. The over the counter, is it just like I need to put in a new furnace, just same to same, is that
Yes,
what would be over the counter that
Mhm.
our just city staff would be granting?
Yep, so for
Okay.
the administrative approval outlined in 4, it would be any type 1 certificates of appropriateness, which would be restorations or major repairs that utilize in-kind materials.
Okay.
So it would be more than even any type of internal fixtures that are in no way related wouldn't even require a certificate of appropriateness. We would just grant, a furnace replacement. But if it was something that involved the architectural details of the historic structure, for example, windows, or let's say it was an old shake roof, and that was something that was recognized on the documents for the historic character, then we would review that and say, okay, it's like for like, and we can approve that. But if they wanted to change it to composite roof, then that would go before
If
the
they wanted to
commission.
make major changes
Yeah.
on fancy trim or something, they would go back. Okay.
Something that changed the character of the structure.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor.
They would have, supposing, currently we have no one, right? We have nothing in the
No.
city limits, so
Mm-mm.
supposing the property owner wants to take this on, that they would be given a packet of that.
Mhm.
Here's, so you know what you're getting into. If
Yeah.
you wanna put a different roof on down the road, you're gonna have to come talk to us or whatever.
Yes, this is a tool that other cities offer and we have been requested to create. Because we do have some historic structures, for example, La Sorrel Inn, and they would be able to take advantage of different incentives via taxes and or grants in order to be able to rehabilitate their buildings. And right now, without this code, they don't have that ability.
So is this just private structures like homes? So not the district, the old district buildings, the Catholic Church, these are like private.
It could be any structure that was brought forward and recommended and went through this process. So there is no structure that automatically becomes a Buckley landmark. They have to go through the process of being designated as a Buckley landmark. But if the property owners for one of those wanted to come forward and go through the process, then they would absolutely be eligible.
In 100 years, it'll be the green door. I digress.
50. It's only 50.
The old green door.
Perfect.
Remember when it was only 3 million to build this?
Yes. Councilmember Bender, anything? Why don't I have her mic on? Anything else on this? Okay, thank you very much. We're gonna move on to the next item. Review of the board and commission's work plans.
So this is an opportunity for council to review and amend the work plans, which are adopted by council and will be on the council agenda at our next meeting. These are necessary in order to keep the commissions focused as well as to designate the staff to accomplish the tasks. So I am going to go through the senior citizen advisory and the citizen advisory commission, and I'll turn it over to Senior Planner Farnsworth to go over the planning commission draft work plan. So first, starting with the Senior Center Advisory Commission, they have requested the following work plan. They would like to look at ADA issues on public buildings, creating a fee and trip policy, including a scholarship fund, creating a quarterly reviewing the newsletter that goes out quarterly, increase engagement with the youth, review transportation improvement project, sidewalk connections, working towards building excellent for senior centers, being involved in the hiring process and onboarding for new staff, volunteer development trainings and workshop, and bring CPR and AED trainings to the senior center. Any questions on any of those things that you would like removed or ideas of things to add? And this would just, again, be for 2025. They do have an opportunity in their mid-year when they come and present to council to update on the work plan, to have items added at that time as well. But if there's anything that you'd like added for now or things that you would prefer that they not focus on, now's the time.
Is this in order of importance?
No.
No, it's just their list. Okay.
I think number 9 is outstanding, that the fire department can bring in CPR and AED.
Yeah.
Their training would last an hour or so. And it's very important, especially, the senior citizens that may or may not have ever had this training before, but a nice refresher. That is outstanding. Engagement with the youth. I don't know how they're gonna do that, but we have a fabulous youth center and that's a great thing.
Yeah, there were some ideas surrounding Grandparents' Day and different ways that they could maybe bring the youth center and the senior center together.
The ADA access, outstanding.
Are we-
Councilmember Anderson.
Are we still keeping our same committees and who we are reporting with?
We'll talk about that next item.
Okay,
So, yeah,
Oh,
if we want to make
okay,
any changes.
sorry.
And so this is a good time.
I literally
to
was
get
just
an
wondering
idea
who's
of
on
what the
this one.
different commissions are right now.
Oh, okay. I
Councilmember
thought it was
Robertson.
you, but in my brain I was like, who is it? I'm sorry. Okay.
Anything else on this, on it's the senior advisory committee work plan? Okay, we'll move on to the
Citizens Advisory.
Citizen advisory.
So for their work plan, they have a lot of ideas. This is a very robust group that accomplished a lot for policy development last year. They want to focus on wayfinding planning. We did have a budget set aside of $5,000 to hire a consultant for that this year. We're focused on signage throughout the city, specifically like the entry onto Main Street sign, as well as signage along the trail. Capital Facility Asset Management Review. We'll talk a little bit more about this as part of our council goals and policies. This was one of the priority projects and something that we should do for insurance as well as just good budgeting. So they want to have involvement in that. Review art proposals. They last year drafted a policy and council adopted that policy via resolution for murals or public art. We have yet to receive any, but if we did, then they would review those proposals. Historic preservation and CLG applications, same thing. Once that's adopted, once we receive a proposal, they would review it. Review park enhancement applications. The policy has been created, but we still need to come up with the application and then they would review those applications as well. Increase community outreach and engagement. It's a bit of a catch-all. Support healthy parks and open space policies and initiatives. An example of that would be like the Clean Air Initiative that we brought forward last year. Reviewing implementation of developed policies, which is tying back to several of the before mentioned items, and then Miller Park and Park Space review and planning.
Councilmember Green.
Can you remind me, do we ever do like a solicitation for art proposals? Or is it more of an, if you build it, they will come type?
If you
In the
build it, they
past.
would come. If
Okay.
we had resources for arts, there are different options for funding for arts. That is an optional sales tax that some cities have, 1% for arts. So there are cities that do RFPs in order to get art projects, but we have not identified a fund or a funding source for that. Other cities have also, for example, their venues, they have, council has designated in code that a certain amount of their venue rental fees goes towards public art, right? So you could do like a set aside for Buckley Hall. There's lots of ways to fund public art if that was something that we were interested in pursuing. But right now, we do not have anything in our code for funding public art.
I guess the question, is like, is the public aware that they can propose art?
The Downtown Association is, and they're the ones who asked initially,
Okay.
so they're interested in murals. We've also been contacted by, and last year we were contacted by an artist that was interested in a pop art piece near the new parking lot. And that came forward to the Citizens Advisory Commission, and it was at that time that we realized we really needed some type of a process for having park enhancements as well as public art proposals. It was a very large pop art piece that would have also had some climbing components to it. The same artist who did the Bacon and Eggs project in Enumclaw.
Wilkerson.
Wilkeson, yes, thank you, in Wilkeson. And so we've had some different proposals come forward, but we now have a more formal process for how we will review those and move those forward in the future. But we haven't done any type of mass campaign calling for public art. We could, and maybe in a future newsletter.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Other questions on this? I will say be very careful of the 1% for art. Every new police precinct that was built during my time on the Seattle Police Department had the most offensive things I've ever seen. That was public art.
Mhm.
Anyway. The mural stuff, we have buildings that would be great
Mhm.
as you're coming in, and it obviously tasteful and whatnot, and all kinds of that. I would love to see somebody come in, somebody associated with the First Nations, the different whether it be Muckleshoot tribe, the Puyallup people, totem pole
Mhm.
needs to be redone.
Mhm.
And that is not only a cultural thing, but it is art.
Mhm.
That's outstanding. I'd love to see something like that. Anything else on the Citizens Advisory Commission? And I agree, they've been working hard. I guess we'll move on to the next one, Planning Commission.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Just here to talk to you a little bit about our work plan for 2025. And so right now, the comp plan is currently under review by PSRC and Commerce. But in the meantime, before we receive our certification, we're going to begin working on our code updates. And so one of the things that we discussed to focus on first is to comply with the new state laws. A lot of those have to do with housing, ADU code. And so that's what we're going to be looking at first. And that'll be the majority of the first half of 2025. You know, as city administrator said, once we have the CLG ordinance ready to go, we want to package that in and have everything ready to go at one time. And with that said, we will be using our comp plan consultants to help us with these code updates. They'll help us with a lot of the compliance with state law. They're more familiar with it. They've worked with it in other jurisdictions. So they'll have a feel for how we can craft it for Buckley. Some of our more internal procedures, the permit processing stuff, we'll be handling that internally. That will be our task, not the consultants. For the second part, it's really timeline and workload dependent. And it just depends how long do these code updates take? How much public feedback do we get? How much do we need to change in between when we first reveal it versus public comment, and whether the comment is from residents, businesses, or even the state departments, the Department of Commerce. So with that said, I just wanted to keep this short and sweet for you guys. And if you have any specific questions about items, I'd love to go over it with you.
Questions for Mr. Farnsworth on commission work plan? Councilmember Burbank.
On the ones that are the new code considerations, can you just give any backstory of where the commercial vehicles and residential zones and the tree preservation one is like stemming from?
Well, most cities do have tree preservation code.
Okay.
Every once in a while, you see something up north, like in Seattle, where somebody climbs up in a tree and stays for a week. That
Okay.
it happens. Not regularly anymore, but it does happen. And so most cities do have tree preservation.
Okay.
And a lot of that can be if you're going to cut down a significant tree,
Okay.
you need to mitigate it and maybe plant something somewhere else. So the tree preservation, it can be flexible and we can kind of craft it how we would like it to be. And in terms of the commercial vehicles and residential, I think I'll let city administrator handle that.
The mayor raised his hand, so.
The commercial stuff is something that I've had many hours of my ear bent, and for good reason. Folks that work whatever they do for a living and they bring their commercial vehicle home. And that bothers some neighbors that may or may not have moved in far more recently than, for the most common example, log truck that's been there or just moved there, but they have a place to park their commercial vehicle safely off the city street. Sometimes on the city street may or may not be safe, but it goes all the way down to like a 1-ton flatbed parked on a curb is almost 9 feet wide with the mirrors, and now there's only 7 feet.
Okay.
So that's kind of that commercial piece is where can we safely let them in? They're only supposed to be on arterials. So the minute they live down a side street, now they're not on their arterial and they're breaking the code. So that's kind of where that whole commercial piece, as far as I know.
So once you ride in a commercial vehicle, what happens with like all the foremans that drive their pipe trucks home? Those are all 12, you know,
Commercial, yep.
commercial vehicle, and now they can't park in their driveway.
Yeah, that's kind of where this is. Our code currently says no. So we want to kind of massage that and make it, you know, we don't want to totally open the doors wide open for people to do crazy, unsafe things, but. we
So
wanna-
this is saying they wouldn't be able to park their pipe truck in their driveway?
I think currently the way the code reads, possibly not. So we want to make sure that that's, you know, we can make that work. As long as it's a safe parking place and all of that. That's kind of this commercial piece. There's lots of moving parts to it because, yeah, just any commercial vehicle, even a small, what do you call the little vans? It's a commercial vehicle. If it's not for personal use and you're in business, it's commercial vehicle.
So now you're taking a benefit away from a guy that gets.
It can be, yes. And so
Yeah, I
that's
would
where,
support that, I know.
No.
yeah. So it's still lots of working blue collar folks that we I wanna see. We don't have problems. The log truck is the most kind of extreme example. They start their truck at 1:30 in the morning because it's time to go to work.
Time to get
And
to work.
the neighbors that just moved in or have been there for 10 years are like, this is against the code. Okay. So,
But
there
we
we
got
go.
the code, but we don't enforce it.
Right.
Councilmember Green.
So the code's too stringent now. We want to look at it, see how we can loosen up some comments.
If it is, yeah, we want to make it work for everybody without, obviously getting outside the law or what have you.
Well, my 2 cents is there's an easy fix for this. And the city owns this except for 1 week a year is the log show grounds. People can park their log truck there, their dump truck, whatever it is.
It's a potential revenue source.
There you go. And, drop off their personal rig and there it is.
I think that the hope was that if a property owner, for example, has several acres, right, and they are in the logging industry, they would have a pathway to be able to get approval to have a commercial vehicle parked at their residence. Whereas right now, there isn't a path to make that possible. So it probably wouldn't apply in HOAs, right, where there's separate restrictions on those more dense lots. But throughout much of the city, there might be an option for us to look at to allow for individuals to park their commercial vehicles on site and avoid this ongoing concern and complaint from the neighborhood, just as a, tribute and recognition of the industry that built the community.
I give a perfect example, or in my mind anyway, Lance Hamilton, who's unfortunately not with us anymore.
No,
His dad before him, and Chris can tell me the name of the development, but it was Hamilton Estates, or their family developed that or sold it to a developer and all that. And then all the people moved in and said, oh, we can't have this. And it's very obnoxious to start a
diesel
truck at 1:30 in the morning. Well, it's start time for working folks. And so that's, Lance is now passed and the neighborhood's nice and quiet, but it wasn't quiet for many years. It was.
Yeah, and I
But-
think the intention, right, is to just bring it up as a topic. So something for council to consider and discuss and we would have to have a public hearing for anything involving the development code. So it would be something that the public would weigh in on as well.
Anything else from council? Councilmember Bender, anything?
No, thank you.
Great, thank you. Seeing nothing else, let's move on to, thank you, Mr. Farnsworth. Down to C, review of council committee and liaison appointments.
It's the beginning of the year.
It is.
Opportunity to shake things up if you choose to or not. This will be on our agenda on the 14th to appoint. So right now, this last year, we did make some changes and changed the committee structure to meet quarterly, and in between have the liaisons. And I've heard nothing but positive feedback from both council as well as the commission groups, having a council member present for those meetings. I think it's helped move things around or along and gotten some productive work done. But that said, we certainly could change the structure. This is just an opportunity for you all to discuss and for us to take notes of where everyone would like to sit so that we can put a motion together for our next meeting.
Chime in, council. Do you not like the committee you're on? Do you want to change committees? Do you want to change your liaison appointments?
I love all the ones I'm on. I'd like to keep them if I could.
I got no
Mhm.
no complaints.
I know it's built a bridge that just even for people feeling like more communication is happening, and of course it is. But just like, oh, I can just, next time I'm at that meeting, I can ask that question.
I think it's outstanding we have, pardon me, liaison to these committees that we just heard about their work plans. And we didn't hear about all of them, but I think it's outstanding. And because they can't always come to our meetings based on whatever, they have their own meetings that they have to go to. I think it's outstanding that we're doing this.
Been working well.
Councilmember Bender, anything you have to chime in on this topic?
Well, the only thing is the ones I'm on doesn't meet very often, so I don't know how anybody feels about that. Or I don't get notifications that they're having a meeting. That's, other than that, no issues.
We can work on notifications or maybe a list, quarterly list or something sent out to all of us.
Yes, last year there were a slew of scheduling snafus, I think because the commissions were brand new. And
Yeah.
so as the groups got formed, they were changing the frequency of their meeting times. This year I will follow up with each chair of the committees as they exist today, assuming that we're not making any changes in order to set dates and times for the rest of the year on those quarterly meetings. The quarterly council meetings, it was infrequent. I do think that we made good time of our study sessions when there was something that we needed to discuss before a council committee meeting. If you wanted to see those happen more frequently every other month, certainly open to that. We did meet more so every other month during budget season. So I think each committee met 4 times last year. Because December there were none. And then for the liaisons, I know that I was really pleasantly surprised that council attended almost every commission meeting that I attended. And so between Planning Commission, Citizens Advisory Commission, and the Senior Advisory Commission, we almost always had someone present. We did have backups last year, and I don't know if we really need that anymore. We do have 7 one, two, three, four, five, six different groups for the liaisons. So maybe one or two can have two appointed, but it seems like everyone got into their individual rhythm for what groups they were the liaison to. So I think it worked really well, but we can certainly be better on our advanced planning and making sure that our schedules are more concrete. We tried to do that already with the work plan and having those meetings identified in January. So we'll keep the communication consistent.
Councilmember Green.
And there was some cancellations of the Parks and Community Services Committee too, so Connie's probably, thinking that we didn't meet a whole lot, because it seemed like we weren't meeting a lot.
Yeah.
We met as
Tough
we
stuff
needed
to-
to, I think
yeah.
is how I felt about it with the
Same.
council committee groups. It seemed like we were spending more time talking about more topics as a council at study session and maybe less as committees at the committee level, and then met as we needed to at the committee level. Did that seem like it worked well for everyone, or do you want more frequent?
I think works better because having, I mean, I don't care, once a month was fine, but if you're sitting there with nothing really there and we have monthly study sessions, like you said, and then bring up the big business at the quarterly meetings. I mean, seems to work fine for me. Anything else on this?
No changes.
So I guess on the 14th, it'll be status quo.
Great.
Last thing, or next one is the last thing, because of item E is going to next month, would be our priority projects.
This is a progress update on the 2023 council goals and priority projects. We have made headway on most all of the goals and it started, if not finished, the majority of the projects. So in your memo, we have the list of completed projects, ongoing and in-process projects, as well as not started projects. And this is where I would like to focus the majority of the discussion. The first two bullet points, procure and install a reader board sign at City Hall or other prominent location and encourage the growth of performing arts. We don't currently have anything in the budget for these specifically. We did expand the Tunes on the Trail and continue to offer that, but I didn't know if there was more that you wanted to see here in the next year. And then for the last two items, those are already in process as well, that we haven't started, but we do have plans to complete both of those tasks this year.
Questions, comments on any of this? I love the reader board thing.
Okay.
I mean, if we could do it at City Hall, this beautiful City Hall, I drive by it every day. Some of you have to drive by it, or whatever, when you come to here or whatever. It is going to be a beautiful, beautiful structure. Very prominent structure. That I don't know where we'd put it at or how it could be displayed, but outstanding idea.
I will get cost estimates for what that would total to put a reader board up.
Councilmember Bergerson.
I just had a question on the priority projects on the back. The only one that I didn't see that was either completed or in the works or on the not started yet, but will be, was the conducted city proper, no, I'm a liar. That's not the one. Prepare for the downsizing of Rainier School.
Oh, that should have been in the process list. I actually just had a meeting with Rainier School last week on Thursday, and I'll start by saying that when I revisited this list in preparation for this meeting, right after the governor's budget came forward, I was like, oh, we were talking about this 2 years ago. So we have always been a little bit of a step ahead. As you all know, the governor's budget, the current governor's budget did include a proposal to close Rainier State School. That has been discussed for a very long time, and other state facilities, for example, Fircrest, it's taken even one step further where they have officially closed those facilities. This last year, Fircrest had millions of dollars invested in it, whereas several years ago it was determined that it would be closed. So what Rainier State School right now is saying is, we don't know exactly what's going to happen yet. Obviously, there's a changing of the guard. And so depending on what Governor Ferguson wants to bring forward, things are still very much subject to change. They did not know that this was coming forward until the governor's budget was released. So they are also very much responding to the potential of having it close. If it did close, it would be several years down the road. And in that amount of time, the state owns a lot of land, but they have a limited number of facilities, especially the types of facilities that offer the services here. So if Rainier State School was to close, it's very unlikely that it wouldn't be replaced by another type of use and facility. We have been preparing for that by changing the zone for that property. In the comprehensive plan designation, we changed it to public, which limited what they could potentially put there. It requires now that the city review it. And last year we adopted our master facilities plan code. So now before they make any modifications, we have a say and it will have to come through us. But in the meantime, they are no longer moving forward with having any budget for the master plan. The facility upgrades that are in process are continuing to move forward, but there's no additional planned facility upgrades and we are in a holding pattern. But we have already made steps in the last 2 years to prepare for the potential downsizing of Rainier State School. Now we're just going to wait and see what happens.
Thank you. A lot of people are employed there.
Yeah.
I don't know how many.
It's our number one employer.
I read an article after the governor's budget came out. They didn't even speak about Rainier School. They talked about the Spokane Valley one, which is the same type of facility. And I don't know why that was, but yes, who knows what that's going to be, but we have prepared well for that with, like you said, the zoning change and other items there. Anything else on this? On our goals? Projects? Councilmember Bender.
No,
If
nothing.
you see none. So item E will be moved to February. We have,
We have one additional quick staff report. It's good news.
great, we have we can add this real quick. It doesn't need to be written down, but Chief Scogan.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This was a very last minute, but it's good news to share. About 45 minutes before the meeting, we were informed by Council Member Morell's office that the city will be receiving an additional $41,900 to help offset the expense of providing EMS to the National Forest Service, Parkland, whatnot, that we began that discussion about this time last year. So more good news to help with the service that we provide.
Not related to Crystal, that's just the government piece.
Crystal is what spurred this conversation a year ago.
Yep.
But just to add on to that, we've been dispatched to Crystal Mountain once since they opened Thanksgiving weekend. Olympic Ambulance, one of their system units, has done, as of yesterday, I believe 16 transports that the city of Buckley did not have to do. So things seem to be working out in our favor. And that was just to keep a paramedic unit in service more for our own citizens.
It's not a condition of the funding that we provide the service.
No. Perfect, yeah, even because it sits on Forest Service land, but that's a private enterprise.
Yep.
Any questions for the chief? I agree, good news. Thanks, Chief.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Council member comments. Happy New Year to everybody. Councilman Bergeson.
So the citizen that reached out to me asking about the flag, at City Hall, they reached out again, tickled pink, that there is a flag there now. So I wanted to say thank you very much on their behalf. They're very excited to see the flag back.
I will pass that along. Thank you.
Rare to get the second volley.
Yeah, yeah, it was like, oh, I see the flag, so I'm so happy.
Was the flag the flag pole taken down during the
It
beginning?
wasn't, no,
Oh,
which is.
but the
good.
flag was not there.
Right.
So for 30 days, because of the proclamation of President Carter, so everybody's flying it for 30 days like that. You know, it looks good. When I saw that today and I'm like, I didn't remember if it was gone or not, but I'm like, yep, I know why that's like that.
Yeah, during construction, we had it removed just because the contractor was on site, but we put it back. Yeah.
Very good. Other council member comments? Council member Bender.
No, no comments. Thank you.
All right, so next Tuesday is our regular first council meeting of the year. And we will be here at 6 p.m. So it is 6:47 p.m. on the 7th of January, and this will conclude the Buckley City Council study session.